Yeah.
Speak about the importance of Ridgely Manor. We have come here from New York Center, New York Vedanta Society, and she has been living here for the last 20 years. From Hollywood, she came here, and she is explaining the historical significance of the place.
Swami Vivekananda was in this country, obviously, and in New York, and he knew Josephine McLeod and her sister Betty. Yeah, who wasn't Leggett yet.
Not Leggett.
Sturgis.
Yes.
And he was a friend of theirs. And so one day he asked the two of those sisters if they would like to go out and have a meal with them. And they said, no, but you can come with us because we're going to a talk by Swami Vivekananda and you're welcome to come with us. So he did. And he listened, and at the end of the talk, he walked up to Swami Vivekananda and introduced himself and offered any kind of help that he could have.
Oh, Francis Leggett.
Yes. So Francis Leggett was a wealthy businessman
Of New York.
in New York. He had made a fortune being one of the first food importers. Probably because refrigeration was just coming in and you could ship things. So he made his fortune, and then, of course, like most of those wealthy magnates, that he diversified, and he had part ownership of a railway, and I think he had part ownership of like a shipping company. And there was actually a boat named after him, but it sank off the coast of Oregon. So,
what was his lineage? Which country did they come from? Scotch?
Betty and Josephine were Irish and Scotch. Leggett is an English name. So I assume his family had been in this country for quite a while. But not wealthy, just kind of middle class. And it was Leggett himself that made the money. So when he offered for Swami Vivekananda, he was offering a considerable amount of financial support. So they became friends. He wasn't exactly like a disciple of Swami Vivekananda in the same way, say, that Josephine McLeod was. And
admirer, rather, right?
yeah, actually friend. So he knew that Swami Vivekananda was basically killing himself traveling all over the country, because in those days travel was really difficult. And just to get here from New York, they would have to cross from Manhattan over the river into New Jersey and then take a train up to the town up here. I don't know if you got off at Kingston, switch trains, come back down to this area on a much smaller gauge railway, then get into a horse and buggy and drive about maybe 5 miles to here. So it was a huge amount of journey just to come here. So
all the conveyances possible, right?
Yeah. So Frank Leggett said to Swami Vivekananda, look, I have this place in the country, and that's where I go to get away from my business life in New York, which he hated. And why don't you come there and visit and just rest? And we won't ask you to give any talks. We won't ask you to do anything. And you can just rest. So he came first in
Mataji,
we'll skip this room for a moment.
yeah.
And we'll go to this room. So that over there is Frank Leggett, in that small photograph.
Wait a minute, just a second, Mataji. Let me close up with the Frank Leggett.
I won't be able to get her properly.
Is that Frank Leggett?
Yes.
Mataji, good.
Francis H. Leggett.
Francis H. Leggett, right?
All right.
And
later also he became the president of the Vedanta Society, if I remember correctly.
He had built these 3 houses in 1892. This one was finished in 1892 for himself as a retreat. And
is that painting behind you for any important lady, or?
Yeah, I'll tell you in a minute. He actually lived in New York City, So he only came up here every now and then. But he loved it up here. And so
this place was itself known as Ridgely earlier?
No, he named this house Ridgely.
Right.
So he named this property Ridgely Manor. And no one is entirely sure. Some people think it's because this village is called Stone Ridge. And other people, but Daughter Leggett thinks it's because he had a friend whose last name was Ridgely, and he copied the design of her house. So it could be that. Who really knows? Anyways, he was helping Betty Sturgis. That is Betty.
Betty, right.
Yeah.
Because she contributed a substantial sum in the Ramakrishna Mission of the early days.
Yeah.
So there is a house still named after her.
Yes.
Leggett House.
So she had been married to William Sturgis, who had a huge business failure. She lived in the Chicago area or somewhere in the Midwest. And had some kind of terrible medical something and died.
William Sturgis, right?
Yeah. Right. And she had 2 children through that marriage. The older one was Alberta, and the younger one was Hollister. Wow. And so
most of them in later days kept contact with Swami Vivekananda also, right? Alberta became the Duchess.
Yeah. So Betty, Francis was helping Betty with something or another, and they got married.
Probably they get married in Paris, right?
Yes, and Swami Vivekananda went to their wedding. Yes. So Betty was not thrilled with being out in the country like this, and was Betty was much more interested in social scene. I understand. And particularly the social scene of the New York wealthy. Wow. But it was really snobbish in New York. And it was controlled by a very rich woman named Mary Astor. Oh, Betty. This New York wealthy that Betty wanted to be a part of. Oh, but Mary Astor would not allow people into her realm. She was like the queen that came from new money. It had to be generations of richness. So Betty was rejected in New York.
So Betty was not a pedigree, correct?
Yeah, but she was not rejected in Europe by the aristocracy there. So she liked to spend her time in Europe, and she had an agreement with Frank that she would spend a lot of time in Europe and very little time here. Oh, even when they were stationed here, she would go to New York. Yeah, Betty did a lot of travel in Europe. Right. So Betty was here, though, when Swami Vivekananda visited, and particularly played a role when he was here in 1899, when he stayed actually part of the time in this house and part of the time in what's called Swamiji's cottage that we don't own. Oh, it was in this campus itself? Yeah, in Frank's time, I'm not totally sure, but it was about 200 acres. And there were 6 houses. Oh, still bigger than what it is. Yeah. Right. And then Daughter Leggett extended that to 800 acres. And then the family, they were all living off of the original Frank's wealth. The wealth began to run out, and so the family started selling off. Yeah. And so the final 82 acres in the last 3 houses is what became Vivekananda Retreat. So this is the Great Hall. So Hollister even played golf. Yes. Right. This is the Great Hall. Right. And all of these Victorian big houses had great halls, and this one is tiny, very small. And what we know about this, Bill is delivering the groceries, and I'm going to ignore it for now. I can have it. It's okay. He doesn't know how to put them away. Swami Vivekananda liked to take naps here. So, and this is the actual couch. That's why it's called Swamiji's couch. And only in his time it was turned around the other way.
That's it.
And these arms used to come down, so it was a lot bigger than it looks.
This could be put in plain.
Yeah.
Become cottage silk.
Yeah, so he would just kind of lie, take a nap, and people would just be quiet and go around him.
Wow.
But also in this room, there's reminiscences that people would come and he would start talking to them, and then more people would come and more people would come, and pretty soon there would be a group. And I think it was Josephine McLeod that was saying that sometimes the whole night would pass. And he would go on talking and nobody would even notice what time it was. Right. And because, first of all, it was Swami Vivekananda. And just the power of his personality. And then second of all, for a lot of the people, they'd never heard anything like that. Now everybody knows because Swamiji's message passed through into the modern culture. Right. Without his name being there, and I don't think it matters.
That's true, that's true.
So
people haven't noticed that it was originally it came from him.
Yeah, him, mostly him. He's the one that started it at any rate.
Right.
And
I heard that there was also an artist who taught him about painting, right?
Mm-hmm. We have some of her paintings.
Baba.
So that's what, in this room, this is where that happened, these all-night talks.
Baba.
Much of this house only, is exactly like it was in Swamiji's time. Wow. And a lot of the furniture is the furniture that was here in Swamiji's time. And our neighbors that occupy the houses that were previously part of this property bring things back. So we just recently got that, which they know was here in Swamiji's time.
Beyond the 83 acres, right?
Pardon?
Beyond the 83 acres. Those houses which lie beyond the 83.
Yeah.
From there?
Because originally there's some houses down that direction that were very much part of the property.
Right.
So, and this was their main parlor. I have a suspicion in the Victorian times, there was always a room for women to socialize and a separate room for men to socialize. And so I have a feeling this is where the women socialized.
Women have a larger room than men have, right?
Yeah, probably more of them.
That's it.
Not to mention the kind of clothes they wore. So.
In Victorian age, you have more barriers for women, right?
Yeah, it was very segregated.
Right.
So that's also Betty Leggett. That's a very famous painting. It will show up in the books about Swami Vivekananda.
Because actually Swamiji's whole duration, Queen Victoria was alive. Victoria much later, 8 or 9 years later.
Yeah. So that's Betty Leggett in Paris.
Correct.
Probably was here in Swamiji's day, and then fell away into the Leggett family for a very long time, and just recently was ended up, there were two of them actually, and one ended up with the Leggett family, and one ended up with the Sturgis family. And this one was the one that the Sturgis family had.
Oh. Sturgis family, do they have the later generations nearby, staying anywhere?
Not anymore. The great granddaughter of Betty often comes here. She lives in Michigan though, so she can only get here once. She's the one that said, I moved, the painting does not belong in my new house, so I'm bringing it here. That happens a lot. That we know the Sturgis family and we know the current Leggett family. And if they have something and they don't want it anymore, they bring it here. So, and we're happy to take it.
It's okay.
So that is Alberta Sturgis, that line, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Hollister, actually.
Hollister.
It's okay.
Now, Hollister probably belongs to the Leggett family. Alberta goes to probably the Sturgis family.
No, Hollister was a Sturgis.
Oh, Hollister was Sturgis.
Yeah, so Betty had Alberta and Hollister with William Sturgis. And then she and Leggett had Francis. So this is Betty.
Oh.
And that's Francis, the daughter.
Like mother, like daughter, it looks like the
Because
Lord
they
of
were
Vishnu.
married probably a few years later in 1900. Swamiji went to Paris for
Yeah,
the
so
wedding.
daughter Leggett was a lot younger than Alberta and Hollister.
Naturally. She came from the second marriage.
Yeah, so these are the 4 photographs of Swamiji that were taken at Ridgely.
Wow.
And 2 of them, we can't go out. We used, in the wintertime, we block this door so you can't go out.
Right. So these are the members of the family itself. Swami Vivekananda and these 2 are probably monastics. Abhinanda?
That's Abhedananda Swami and that's Turiyananda Swami.
Turiyananda Swami.
And this is Alberta. The one with a hat is Josephine. You can't see Betty, but she's there. Right?
Oh, someone down
yeah,
there.
and that is the children's governess, whose name is Miss Looker.
Right. And these 2?
That's Swamiji, and that's Sarah Bull.
Sarah Bull.
That's not here, though. That's at the other house.
Other house.
Yeah, that we don't have anymore.
Achha.
So I think it's the only photograph I've ever seen of Swamiji where it looks like he's smiling with his mouth open. either that or there's something wrong with the photograph.
And so yourself, you stay in this house or
yes,
another house?
I stay here. Gitaprana and I stay here.
Can I just take a look?
Yeah, close.
Yes. And Swamiji is this photo in the Leggett house only, right?
This one is also, these 2 were taken at a house called the Inn.
Which you say doesn't belong to us anymore.
So these were taken out here.
Out in the porch.
Yeah, so they were sitting right there, and Swamiji, at least in one of these, this one, was standing right in front of that column. That one, the one that we're about to renovate. So, yeah, we're going to work on this porch. If it ever stops raining.
This veranda probably wasn't there.
No, this is the inn. Only these 2 were on this porch.
This is probably.
Yeah. So they were sitting right on the edge there.
Right.
And we know it was afternoon because of the light, and Alberta is covering her face.
Wow.
Because they have to sit there for a very long time while the photograph is exposed.
Oh, in those days, photographs took a long time, right?
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
So
Mataji, can't we go out from this way? Or it's
not this way, we have to go around.
Right.
Because we have what are called storm windows here, and it makes it's cold in the winter. And so it keeps the house from the wind from coming through the doorways.
Do you have snowing here? Ice in the winter?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Wow.
Not so much this year. This year we didn't have much.
But still, it's very cold, right?
It can go down to, I don't know what it is, C, but in Fahrenheit, it can go down to -10. So that's going to be much further down centigrade. So we can go.
And keep this here?
Yeah, you can put it there.
Mataji, whose picture is this?
Oh, that's Francis, the daughter, and Swami Chaitananda.
Ah, I recognize that.
Francis,
Chetananda is there?
Yeah.
Let's see.
This is him.
Wow.
and these other photographs of Swami Sardhananda and Swami Abhedananda and Swami Turiyananda are here because they visited Swamiji when he was here in 1899.
This is Abhinand, no?
Yeah. That's Swami, and that's Swami Sardhananda. Yeah, that's daughter Leggett when she was old. She looks a lot like Josephine MacLeod.
She does?
Yeah.
Josephine MacLeod, a total biography has been now published.
Yeah, I think twice. So we'll go here.
Josephine MacLeod, did she pass away in New York itself?
No, she was taken, Swami Pravrajika took her under his care in her old age. And so a devotee named Ujjwala, who was a disciple of Swami Vivekananda, kind of acted as her nurse. And so she lived at the Hollywood Center, and that's where she passed away.
She lived more than 90 years, actually.
Yeah, with the same Victorian clothes.
She was chanted by the sadhus in the room.
Yes. So all the furniture here is the same as it was in Swamiji's time. The chairs, the table, these big... the only thing that's not are the things on the wall. So there's some stories about this. We know some things about this simply because we know about Victorian etiquette. So the host would have sat here. And the hostess, because the butler's pantry from where they got served, would have sat there. And etiquette required that an honored guest sit either to the left or the right of the hostess.
Oh, so
Yeah.
Swamiji will be
If he sat there, I mean, if he consented to be the honored guest, he would have sat in one of those two places. The chairs have moved around endlessly. But we know a couple things. That one of them is a famous story where the idea was that Swami Vivekananda didn't have to follow any of the rules if he didn't want to. And so he often would eat his meal and gone. And
he
so
didn't wait for others, that's what I was going to say. That is, he didn't have to wait for the people of others.
Ordinarily, etiquette required that until the hostess and the host stood up, nobody else left the table, unless they had some kind of engagement, they had to go. And but he would just leave. And if Betty wanted him to stay, because there were other people, she knew he loved chocolate ice cream. And if he even looked like he was going to leave, she would announce there will be chocolate ice cream for dessert, and he would wait. I don't know how many times she could get away with that, but the story has come down that way. But there's a better story, and that has to do with the artist, Maud Stubb, the one who gave Swamiji the lessons. And she was a lot younger. She must have been in her 20s, I think.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And she was apparently recovering from... she had some kind of a boyfriend who left her. And so she was heartbroken. And Swami Vivekananda was trying to talk her into getting over it. And either because she was small or because she was young, he used to call her baby. And she wasn't staying here. This was in 1899. She wasn't staying here. She was staying in Stone Ridge itself, in the village of Stone Ridge, and at a hotel. And every day, Swami Vivekananda would walk her back to her hotel in the evening. So, probably with some other people as well. But anyhow, she was here for lunch or dinner, I don't know which. And Betty had invited some of her rich friends to show off Swami Vivekananda, I'm sure. And Maud was not rich at all. And she remembers looking around and all the beautiful, very expensive clothes and jewelry of the other women there and starting to feel jealous. And the moment she felt that jealousy, she looked up and Swami Vivekananda was staring at her. And I'm not sure if she was across the table or next to him or what, but under his breath he said to her, "Don't be fooled, baby." And she totally understood that. Like, don't have your head turned by all this superficial wealth and jewelry and this and that. That is totally not worth it. And she remembered that the rest of her life. So that happened here.
Monster later stayed on New York, is that right?
On the East Coast somewhere. I'm not exactly sure. And there's a nice, where did I read it? It may have been in one of the, either Vedanta Keshari or Prabhupada Bharata or someplace. There is a really, where she writes the reminiscences herself of Swami Vivekananda. And a lot of the stories come from that. Or maybe I found it online.
I told you in the Marius book.
Some of it, yeah.
Some of the incidents are there.
Yeah. The one disadvantage to those books, and I love them, that I'm one of the very few people that has read them from cover to cover, all of the volumes, but is that Sister Gargi did not have the internet advantage. And now so much more information can be found.
Because Gargi wrote books in the 1950s.
Yeah.
It was much earlier.
Yeah.
She was a pathbreaker in the sense.
Yeah.
Rummaging through the different newspapers. It was
yeah, she did a lot of work.
You saw Sister Kali later?
Yes, I knew her because my aunt was one of Swami Ashokananda's disciples. And so that whole group of people, those were my aunt's friends, and so I knew them from when I was this high.
That is how you were drawn to the society.
Yes. I think the Divine Mother brought me there, but so I my family would go and visit San Francisco to my aunt, and she would drag me around to all the devotees. So, and then later on, I myself became interested.
Swami Ashokananda?
No, if I did, I was too young.
Oh.
And by the time, he had died by the time.
1969 probably. That was quite early.
Yeah, this was more like 1960 that I'm thinking of. And then...
Because Gargi has written a full-scale biography of him, Swami Ashokananda, published from outside.
I feel like I knew him because I've been hearing all these stories about Swami Vivekananda all my life. And I almost feel like I knew him, but I don't recall ever meeting him. My mother met him.
He was a very large presence in Hollywood.
Yeah. My mother met him when she was 6. So, because my aunt was the oldest of 7 children, and she had met Swami Ashokananda when she was 17 and going to the University of California and became lifelong devotee. And really committed.
Stayed in Hollywood, as far as I remember, more than 30 years.
In San Francisco?
Yes, on the West Coast. Actually, he was earlier the editor of Pravrajika. Yes. He had a strong altercation with Mahatma Gandhi.
Yes.
Over industrialization and cottage industries. When Mahatma Gandhi wanted to promote cottage industries, he was the editor, young Swami at the time. Young, you know, it shouldn't be done. You should go for modernization. Then he comes over and takes charge over here. Originally, he belonged to the eastern part of Bengal. Right?
Yeah.
The area is known as Haviganj. So there, his birthplace Shamsarganj. There's an ashram there. I had the opportunity to go to that part. So he's a very strong guy, actually.
Yeah.
And he was also a teacher earlier. Yogesh Datta was his name.
Yeah. The Sister Gargi has written a wonderful
Biography
biography.
of his, right.
That
Heart poured out.
yeah, I love that book.
That's a bold biography.
Yeah.
Sometimes probably deviating from the Ramakrishna Mission sadhus believed in. So Sister Gargi decided to go independently.
Yeah.
Yes, he decided to go independent. And I love that. Why should always be told the line of Ramakrishna Mission?
Yeah. She started a trend now because there's many good biographies that
Written outside of the...
yeah. Well, that's the policy of the Ramakrishna Mission.
Mataji,
Beyond the direct disciples, except in very few cases, they will not publish.
Mataji, is it safe to say this place is called Stone Ridge? Or
The village is called, well, the town is called Marbletown.
Marble
The
Town?
village is called Stone Ridge.
And
This
this place...
is called Vivekananda Retreat Ridgely.
Okay. So good. Thank you.
We can go upstairs. That's
Okay.
where Swamiji stayed upstairs at least twice, if not 3 times.
So you're fortunate to stay in the same house, right?
Yes, absolutely fortunate. That's why this is a lot of work. But I always think, oh my gosh, the privilege of staying in Swamiji's house.
Just to draw a parallel, Mataji, mine was somewhat similar. When we were young children, sadhus used to frequent our houses. Okay, so say probably more than 20 sadhus of the Ramakrishna Mission had come to our houses. So both of us, we later on studied in Ramakrishna Mission school. Narendrapur is the school, good school there. When we were young kids, sadhus would come in, and the older sadhus normally wouldn't take a second helping of the lunch. The younger ones, they would say, okay, I can have. And we were the younger, we two young sons would come up to mother and say, how much would they eat? You won't leave anything for us. So whenever I go to devotee's house now, I go and tell them, please keep something for the younger ones. They shouldn't feel that they are let down.
Yeah, so this is Alberta, and she's standing right here.
Albert actually went to India also later on.
Yeah, Alberta,
She
she looks like she's about 12 there, but actually she's 18. And she basically was sold off to the Earl of Sandwich. That's what they did in those days, you know, political kind of marriage.
Oh.
And so she went off to the UK.
Oh, Sandwich was the place in the United Kingdom, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Huge estate.
Oh.
And her great-grandchildren are still there.
Oh, where? In the UK or here?
At the what's called Hinchingbrook, which is the estate for the Earls of Sandwich.
Oh.
And the interesting thing is, one of Francis Legate's grandchildren, Mary, Sardamat had asked her, I don't know even how they got in touch with her, to see if there was anything about Sister Nivedita that they could find. She could find. So she went to her cousin, who's the current Earl of Sandwich, and said, I'm looking for things. And she came here after that and said, he has so many things, he doesn't know what he has. So I have a feeling, because Alberta's voice is missing from the story of Swami Vivekananda, really.
But Swamiji had a real affection for her.
Oh, yeah.
Often she would guide.
She knew him really well.
Because
And
as far as my memory goes, she was probably 23 when Swamiji wrote a letter. If I'm not terribly wrong.
probably.
So she was quite grown up to judge Swami Vivekananda by that
Yes.
time. Yes.
And she knew him here.
Yes.
And she was old enough that daughter Leggett was only 3, so she's not going to really remember. But Alberta knew, and Hollister knew him.
Yes.
And then later on, when Swamiji went to Paris after he had...
With Hollister, probably he also played a while, isn't it?
They were good. He knew Hollister.
Yes.
And Swamiji went to Paris in 1900.
1900. Parliament of Religions was held there. In another
Yeah.
one.
And the Legates actually weren't there, so Alberta was his hostess in their Paris flat.
That's right.
So she really knew him, and yet there are, if there are any reminiscences that she had, they're probably in the Earl of Sandwich's huge pile of historical records.
But because those haven't been received by the Sarada Mata.
No.
Right.
Mary, the granddaughter, said, he doesn't even know what he has.
Right.
And because it's like an earldom that's been passed down for hundreds of years, how much history they must be collecting.
Because here in America, Louisburg went around the different ancestors of the person Swamiji knew.
Yeah.
And talked to them personally.
Yeah.
Say that Harvard professor who gave the letter, this, what was the name of the professor? Professor of Greek.
Yeah.
Gave the letter.
I'm forgetting his name right now.
So he went down to his grandfather. She went down to the grandfather. And then they unearthed stories about him. And wonderful stories. Because the professor's wife, they had met Swamiji originally in a place called New England. Mm-hmm. And there Swamiji, he was in belligerent mood against the English. Mm-hmm. There he said that, you see, the English have given to us 3 B's. Bible, bayonet and Bible. Bible and brandy. Bible,
bayonet and brandy?
Brandy. 3 B's they have given us. And then this lady, in a joking manner, she writes in a diary. She used to write diaries regularly. Mm-hmm. She would say, this is the first time that I saw an Indian monk coming up with such bold statements. Elegant English as well.
There,
John Henry Wright.
Yes.
Her Mrs.
And then there's Kate Van Sanborn also, somewhere out there.
Sanborn, Kate Sanborn.
Yeah.
That was near Boston.
Yeah.
Flushing Meadows probably was the name of I forget the name of the village. Swamiji went from Chicago to that Sanborn's village because Chicago turned out to be very costly. And it turned up much earlier than the Parliament of Religions.
Yeah.
So his money was draining out.
Yeah. Another thing about here is that when he was here in 1899 for all those months, Betty made a point. She had really wonderful social skills, obviously. And she made a point of making sure that all the people that came around had a chance to talk to Swami Vivekananda. And Sarah Bull was here, and she was here with a friend, or her secretary, one of the two. And that friend spent many hours with Swami Vivekananda, but her story is totally missing also.
So these are things that you can excavate.
Yeah, right? Or someone can.
Because Sarabhuga also did the same thing in Boston for Swamiji,
Yes.
in Cambridge. It's introducing him to the elite.
Yes. This was one of, there's a Swami you will not meet because he passed away in Hollywood, Swami Krishnananda, who was a Western Swami of great spiritual stature, I would say.
He drew this.
No, he had life-size photographs of all the direct disciples in his room, apparently. And he gave this to Carl Whitmarsh, who is a descendant of Leggett's cousin, what's his name? Starts with a T. Whitmarsh. And the Whitmarsh and Leggett kind of acted, they were the ones that published Raja Yoga.
Oh, right.
And